Toru, the main character, he's a lonely guy for sure. His wife's obviously lonely and dealing with demons on a whole different level than her husband. Noboru Wataya, the antagonist, he's obviously a very lonesome character, and I suspect his existence in this book is sort of he's sort of like a not so generic representation of the classic Japanese man who is he's ambitious and calculating. He struggles with his emotional side of his life. Instead, choosing to vie for his his professional fulfillment. Instead of that, from his family, or instead of like dealing with being with his family or non-work related hobbies and things like that. I feel like Wataya is an exaggerated case of this. And Murakami, he masterfully creates both, like the sense of dread as well as a curiosity whenever Wataya is come across in the story. Like any time that Toru comes across him, you get like a sense of like, oh wow, this isn't normal. Like this doesn't feel right. Um, Another lonely character in the story is Mai Kasahara, which she might be my favorite character in any book. Um, she's just amazing. If she's not my favorite, she's right there. I really like Judge Holden and Blood Meridian. There's a couple characters that I love, but Mai Kasahara, she's right there. Her sadistic tendencies and like all of her existential monologues mixed in with her reverse. She's reserved and innocent, and she's so cute. Everything she does. It just makes her the most unforgettable part of this book for me, for sure. And the loneliness is apparent right away with her, because she's just like waiting behind her backyard. She's like watching the alleyway where she sees Toru at the beginning of the book. She's a perfect complement to him throughout all of his problems and his struggles. I think it's really cool, just the relationship between the two. Um, Getting past what Murakami may have hoped to instill uh, into everybody reading the book, the book reads incredibly fast paced. The only parts that seem to slow down were the Lieutenant Mamiya's recallings of the zoo and the Siberian work camps. But I found these no less interesting and enjoyable. I think because those were sort of the heavier parts of the book, it sort of felt a little harder to get through those for me because, like, you have the sort of lighter sides. Even when Toru's going through his struggles, it's like he doesn't. It's still relatively light, like he's doing the stuff with with the mark on his face and with cinnamon and nutmeg and all that stuff. But when you went to Lieutenant Mamiya's uh, memories, it's so intense and so brutal. The guy that the guy that skinned the Mongolian, or the Mongolians that skinned the other Japanese guy and things like that. Crazy, crazy stuff. And then all the zoo animals they got killed. But the rest of the book went by pretty quickly. What's extremely impressive to me about the main character Toru is his progression throughout the story. Um, I can't really say what he progressed from or what he progressed to, though he certainly seemed more self-aware and self-confident by the end of the story. But the benchmarks throughout the book, it really set up his personal journey. He seems soft and unfocused at the book's opening, which I don't think is a bad thing. I mean, I'm soft and unfocused in things too. Everybody is, but but slowly, the perception of him began to change. When he had beat the lighter guy to death, when he almost beat the guy with the baseball bat, um, I instantly began to acknowledge him, not only his willingness to defend himself, but I also realized that he was capable of going too far when he had to, and that's a good thing because a lot of times you have to go too far, And in his circumstances, he had to go pretty far in everything he did. I mean, just to survive the hotel room, which was a crazy scene. Which I'll talk about that, but uh, in a lot of cases, you have to go too far to reach your desired outcome. I mean, you know, this was significant for that. Also, the baseball bat. It was just crazy. And also, when he met Nutmeg, it was almost like the world like started to sort of open its doors to Toru in a way, and it felt really relieving that it's like he had somebody on his side. We've been given the impression that there was not a lot of help out there for Toru, and that not only were his abilities limited as far as finding Kimiko, but he was going to have to figure them out all on his own without anyone's help. And you really start to get that feeling like it's like a salmon swimming upstream. It's crazy. The Kano sisters, they offered some help, but they didn't really answer any questions. Like, the older sister, she sort of, her riddles, most of the time you didn't feel like were really helping. You didn't even know really what side she was on. And then the younger sister, it's almost like she was almost putting her problems on Toru. So she was almost taking from him rather than giving to him. But, and they sort of left him, sort of spinning his wheels until he met Nutmeg. When Nutmeg decided to help him out, everything sort of began to change. Uh, by the time his showdown came in the hotel room, which was, pulse pounding, by the way, I mean, crazy. But I had a lot of confidence in Toru's ability to win the day. They really set it up, though. To call the hotel creepy would be an understatement. I mean, between the faceless bellhop and then the story of the murder in the hotel bathroom and the crazy way things went down when Toru actually got in the room, when Toru actually got into the room, I felt fear for the story going back to that place. Like I got a sense of dread every time that it went there. When we were there, I knew the end of the book was obviously coming up because you can feel the book in your hands and the pages are running out. But it was a pretty intense experience when there was it's like there was nowhere else to hide, and you knew it was going to come to an end, and there was nothing else to do, nowhere else to go, and he'd been flirting with that room the whole book, and he finally comes down to it. Toru, he conquered a really deep, dark, mysterious evil in the hotel room, and it was a great finale for who he'd become. The things subjected to this poor man were pitiful. I mean, it was just crazy. He finds out his wife has been having some pretty great sex with another man. I mean, not only does he find out she's been having great sex with another man, but he learns about it in pretty vivid detail. I mean, she really didn't spare him the shock factor. The inner ravels of a person, they can come undone when that happens. And, it seems to happen a lot for men too, because the nature of men and women's relationships and having him having to survive that without even being able to reach her or even speak to her, it showed so much vulnerability in him. And then his contempt for Wataya made him more vulnerable. He was obviously self-conscious about being unemployed, and Wataya had become a resounding success in life. While sort of smearing Toru's marital problems in his face. And then there was the mark Toru received on his face, similar from nowhere. And then the well by the alleyway was closed off, and he just seemed so down and out. But everything worked out for him, or at least it seems like it did. Um, my favorite part of the book, would have to be the very ending. While the ultimate conclusion certainly seems implied that Toru and Kimiko they eventually reconcile since Toru broke the spell, and it says that Kimiko, despite wanting to be confined, she would eventually get out, and he seemed optimistic. Um, the small opening in the ending kind of left me hoping for a possibility that Toru and Mai Kasahara would have a future together. I thought the imagery was excellent for their walk in the snow. It was obvious with their interaction that scene that Mai wanted very much to be with Toru. She even mentioned that others might believe that we are lovers, and Toru, he even seemed to allow room for that notion when he agreed that others might in fact think that. And it didn't seem like it really bothered him very much. And even if they don't get together, I always like the sad ending because it's different than what we usually get, and it makes me think more, and it leaves a greater impact. I guess I'm masochistic in that silly way, but the sad ending, it kind of it makes you think more. It stays with you, but I'd still sort of like to think that Mai and Toru get together because I know she's 17 and it's a little creepy because he's like I think he's like 30, but she'll be 18 soon, and I don't know. It just seems like they fit together. They had such chemistry. Like I don't think I've ever seen two characters in a book have chemistry like that. It's just amazing what Murakami was able to accomplish with that. But yeah, these are some of my thoughts and impressions after reading the Wind Up Bird Chronicle. I've heard it often said that many of Murakami's works are more entertaining than Wind Up Bird, but it's usually said by the same people that Wind Up Bird is overall his greatest achievement as a writer. I personally found this book entertaining, but I can see how people could say that it wasn't his most entertaining book. I found scenes in 1Q and Hardboiled Wonderland and After Dark, be pretty intense and entertaining. But the way Wind Up Bird builds the character throughout, and when the conclusion starts getting hammered out, I believe it's his greatest work today. You know, even though, like I said, Kafka is just about as good in my opinion. But it's like picking your favorite kid. You can't do that. But yeah, like the conclusion of that build, you know, there's just all those steps to the build of the main character's, you know, struggle and his journey, and the way that it all comes together, it's just so intense. It's so much more intense than um, what I've found in his other stories. Um, but yeah, thank you for watching my video. If anyone likes my observations of the book or disagrees, I'm reading this part, or has their own ideas about the book, please, please, please comment down below. I only wrote one please, but I said it 3 times. I am an obsessive researcher of books once I've read them. I love to go through the internet and see what everybody says because, you know, I throw myself into the stories when I read them, but you know, I do have other things going on, and I sometimes leave a book for a week or whatever. You know, it's just life, and I might not always catch things in stories. A lot of times I miss things, or I might miss things, and I like to go through and see if someone caught something. So then I'll go back and read that part. So if you have anything interesting about the book, then I'd love to hear about it. So, you know, comment and tell me what you think if you've read the book, and you know, if you think May Castle is a shitty character, or if you think, you know, whatever, then tell me. And you know, I just like talking about books. So thanks for watching my video, and I will see you later.